In a quiet village, far away from the bustling cities and the endless roar of machines, there was once a land where silence reigned at night, and the whispers of the forest were louder than the voices of men. The people of this village lived simple lives. They tilled the soil, they harvested their crops, and when the rains came, they thanked the gods. But for many of the men, farming alone was never enough. To prove their strength, to feed their families, and to gain the respect of their peers, they turned to hunting. Hunting was more than an occupation. It was pride. It was a badge of honor. To walk into the forest with nothing but a spear, a cutlass, or an old Dane gun, and return with a bush pig, an antelope, or a fat grass cutter, that was glory. A hunter was celebrated. His name carried weight in the meetings of men. But not every man was destined to be a hunter. There was once a boy born into an ordinary family in this very village. From the moment he came into this world, there was something strange about him. His cry was unlike that of other children, long, piercing, as though echoing from a distant place. His mother, frightened but hopeful, held him tightly and prayed for his safety. Days later, a spiritual consultant, a wise seer who often guided families in times of uncertainty, came to their compound. He looked at the boy, shook his head slowly, and gave a warning that chilled a mother's heart. "This child," he said, "must never take up hunting. The forest does not want him. If he steps into the bush with the heart of a hunter, it will swallow him whole. His destiny will not allow him to live long in that path. Protect him, for hunting will bring his end." The mother, terrified, clung to those words. She vowed to shield her son from that cursed path. Years passed. The boy grew into a strong young man, tall and broad-shouldered, the kind of man who drew respect when he walked into the village square. While others boasted of their adventures in the forest, he stayed back, working hard on the farm. His hands were skilled with the hoe and cutlass, and he became known for his bountiful harvests. But deep in his heart, the call of the forest never left him. Each time hunters returned to the village with their kill, with the proud shouts of victory echoing through the night, something stirred within him. He wanted that pride. He wanted that respect. He wanted to prove himself not just as a farmer, but as a man who could face the dangers of the wild and return victorious. His mother never let him forget the warning. Whenever the topic arose, her eyes would darken with fear. "My son," she would whisper, "do not seek death where there is life. The forest is not your friend. It is your enemy. Promise me you will never hunt." And for many years he obeyed, but fate has its way of waiting. The day came when his mother closed her eyes forever. She died after a brief illness, surrounded by her children. On the day of her burial, the young man stood before her grave, silent, torn between grief and defiance. For in his heart, a thought grew louder. Mother is gone. She cannot stop me anymore. What power does the dead have over the living? It was not long after that he made his choice. He picked up a hunter's weapon. At first, it was small, a simple trap set at the edge of the farm, meant for grass cutters. When he caught his first, a thrill surged through his body. He roasted the meat, shared it with his friends, and heard their laughter, their praise. That night, he slept with pride swelling in his chest. The warning of the seer, the fear of his late mother, they all seemed foolish. Nothing happened to him. And so, he went deeper. Soon, he carried a Dane gun, borrowed from a friend, and joined other hunters on their nightly expeditions. At first, the others laughed at him, calling him the farmer who wants to be a hunter. But when he returned with 2 grass cutters one night, then a porcupine another, their laughter turned into admiration. Years rolled by. He became skilled, respected, even admired. He married a beautiful woman, built a family, and had children who played around his compound. At village meetings, his name was called among the great hunters. The king himself recognized his contributions. What had once been forbidden had now become the source of his pride. But fate, though silent, never forgets. For 12 years, he hunted without trouble. 12 long years of success, of meat shared at festivals, of songs sung in his honor. Then one morning, he prepared for the hunt again. He polished his gun, sharpened his cutlass, and tied charms around his waist. That morning, something strange happened. His wife, who usually supported him, felt an uneasiness in her spirit. As he prepared to leave, she stood in the doorway and said, "Husband, do not go today. My heart is heavy. I feel danger in the air. Stay back just this once." He laughed, shaking his head. "You worry too much. The forest has been kind to me for years. What can happen now? Do not let fear rule you." But his wife pleaded. She told him she had seen shadows in her dream the night before, shadows that whispered his name. She begged him to stay. Still he went. That evening, when the moon rose over the village, his wife sat waiting. She listened for the sound of his footsteps, the familiar cough he gave when he approached the gate, the sound of his gun resting on the wall. But the night grew deeper, and he did not return. By dawn, fear consumed her. She ran to the homes of other hunters, asking if they had seen him. None had. Word spread quickly, and soon the entire village knew. The king was informed. The head of hunters gathered men, and a search party was formed. They entered the forest with charms, with torches, with drums to call his spirit if it had strayed. They searched the paths he often took. They called his name. They fired their guns into the air. But the forest remained silent. Days passed. Whispers began. Some said he had been killed by wild animals. Others said the spirits of the forest had claimed him, for he had been warned long ago. His wife wept until her eyes were swollen, holding his hunting clothes to her chest. His children cried, calling for their father who would never again walk through the door. The hunters searched for weeks, but no body was found. No trace of his gun, his cutlass, or his charms. It was as though the forest had swallowed him whole. And so, the prophecy was fulfilled. He had been warned from birth. His mother had carried the fear all her life, but he ignored it. He defied destiny, and destiny claimed him in the end. To this day, the villagers speak of him in hushed tones. They tell the story to their children as a warning. When fate speaks, you must listen, for no man can outrun his destiny. And at night, when the moonlight filters through the forest, some hunters swear they hear footsteps in the leaves, the distant crack of a gun, and the whisper of a man's voice calling out from the darkness. A voice that never finds its way home. Sparkle's lesson/moral. When warnings come, whether from elders, from dreams, or from the deep whispers of fate, we must listen. Pride and stubbornness lead only to sorrow.